Beat about the bush to supersize and grow your business. Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here, and our communication-related idiom today, to coincide with this year's annual challenge, is beat about the bush. Now, we've talked about beat around the bush in the past. I know that we have. And this idiom is very closely related. It has a similar meaning, a similar origin. It came from bird hunting, just like beat around the bush did, when participants in the hunt would actually have some people that went around the bushes and beat them up to stir up the birds so that other people could catch the birds in nets, or for hunting parties so that they could shoot at the birds, etc., on bird hunts. Now, what are some ways that we could use this? Well, what does it mean first? First, it means to talk about lots of unimportant things and not get to the point, to avoid talking about something, usually because you're afraid or you think it's going to upset somebody. So embarrassing topics, usually, in corporate America, it was always giving people feedback. Some people are great at giving and taking feedback, other people not so much. And so you'll have leaders and bosses in different organizations, and even in nonprofit or other organizations, or in situations where they will bring up all kinds of little things but not really talk about the main thing that they want to talk to people about. I saw this in corporate America a lot, where there would be a couple of people, or maybe only just one person, that had a performance issue or a challenge. Maybe they were late for work all the time, but instead of talking to that person and holding them accountable to being on time for work, they would make up complicated rules and regulations that they applied to everyone in the organization. So they maybe didn't have an attendance policy, but one person was abusing the attendance policy, so all of a sudden, or abusing and not showing up for work or being late. So they would create a big policy and process that they then rolled out for everyone in the organization. I consider that overkill. It's a lot easier to deal with one person than it is to make rules and regulations that affect everyone. So that would be an example of beating about the bush in practical applications, as I've seen it happen in corporate America. But I consider things like small talk beating about the bush. And sometimes they're building relationships and warming someone up for a conversation. But a lot of times, small talk, you'll see at networking events, it's just because people are nervous and afraid. So they're beating about the bush to get themselves more comfortable before they approach the topic of actually sharing their products and services and their business with other people. Even though that's what networking events are for. You're supposed to go, share your business, learn about other people's businesses, and then move on. So vague or euphemistic talk, avoiding answering questions is another example. We see this on television and in politics all the time, where a reporter will ask a tough question and the person they're asking it of doesn't want to answer it, so they'll put out all kinds of other things and try to divert attention to avoid answering the question. So usually it's to avoid embarrassing or difficult topics or situations, but and it's been around actually since the 1440s, even though it didn't appear in writing until a poem in, I can't even remember when it was. I guess the poem was created in the 1440s, but it didn't appear in print until, of course, probably the 17 or 1800s, when print communication became more popular. So what are some ways we could use beating about the bush in our business in a positive way? I will admit I am guilty of intentionally beating about the bush in difficult situations. Why? Because sometimes it's the appropriate behavior. Feedback, in my opinion, should be given one-on-one, especially positive feedback and praise in public. Negative feedback or corrective action one-on-one, or with the one-on whoever the people are with the challenge or the behavior that you want to change. It's like, teachers, again, they scold the whole class when one or two students are misbehaving, right? You yell at the whole class because two kids are talking, instead of saying, hey, Johnny and Joey, please stop talking. We're trying to have story time or whatever. But we can use it in a positive way by avoiding difficult subjects. I'd use it in negotiations. Instead of attacking the big elephant in the room right off the bat, in negotiations, strategically, we don't usually want to go right there because that'll stall negotiations. We want the negotiations to actually proceed in a specific way. We'll start with smaller issues, smaller topics, small talk, not small talk so much, but the smaller issues that we can really come to agreement on easily before we hit the really hardcore issues. Done the same thing in audits. Sometimes you want to divert the auditor's attention I've been on lots of audits in corporate America where I would notice something and I didn't necessarily want the auditor to notice it. I noticed it, so I was going to make sure it got fixed, but I didn't necessarily want our organization to get dinged or written up or seen as not doing the right thing because we missed some little thing in an audit. So you could use it that way. Marketers, and in marketing, we use beating about the bush a lot. We will emphasize small things about our products and services that are important to people and not necessarily talk about some of the other aspects that might not be exactly what's right for them. Is that ethical or moral? I don't know. It's up to us to decide as business owners. So love to know your experience with this particular idiom or expression, beat about the bush. I beat about the bush sometimes because it's the appropriate way to approach a situation, but otherwise I'm pretty direct. I think direct communication is usually better, but there are situations, just like anything else in life, where a certain type of behavior is more appropriate. All right, have an awesome day. I will, of course, be with you with another communication-related idiom tomorrow and for the rest of this month. Have an awesome day. See you tomorrow.